started here. Call this meeting to order. Can we start with a roll call?
Commissioner Goebel,
Here.
Commissioner Jamu, Commissioner Morales, Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Chairperson Condit.
Here. All right, can you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, moving on to citizens communication. While the Planning Commission welcomes and encourages participation in Planning Commission meetings, adopted rules allow no more than 5 minutes for expression of non-agenda items, matters under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public. However, California law prohibits the Planning Commission from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Planning Commission. Citizens are entitled to address the Planning Commission on any agenda item subject to the 5-minute provision. Is there anyone tonight that would like to make public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
All right, go ahead and close citizens communication. Moving on to conflict of interest. Is there anyone on the Planning Commission that would like to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none. Moving on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion unless it is otherwise determined or requested by an individual commissioner or the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be to accept and act upon by a roll call vote. Is there anyone on the commission that would like an item pulled from consent? Seeing none. Anybody in the public? Seeing none. With that, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
Got a first?
Second.
Got a first and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Goebel,
Aye.
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chairperson Condit.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with one absent.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. We're going to start with Mr. Beltran, I believe.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Mike Beltran, Director of Engineering. Tonight, we are presenting the annual review of the city's 5-year capital improvement program for fiscal years 2027 through 2032. The capital improvement program is the city's planning document for major infrastructure and capital projects anticipated over the next 5 years and beyond. These projects include roadway improvements, water and sewer infrastructure, traffic safety projects, ADA improvements, parks, and other public facility investments throughout the city. The Planning Commission's role tonight is not to prioritize or approve funding for individual projects, but rather to determine whether the proposed projects are consistent with the maps, policies, and principles of the City of Ceres 2035 General Plan. As discussed in the staff report, many of the projects included in the CIP directly implement the goals and policies contained within the general plan, particularly those related to circulation, public facilities, safety, multimodal transportation, utility infrastructure, sustainability, and long-range planning. Some of the notable projects included in this year's CIP include the Central and Hackett pedestrian safety corridor improvements, Crow's Landing Road rehabilitation, Moffett Road rehabilitation, the downtown rehabilitation improvements, Hatch Road water main phase 3, the North Ceres pump station and downstream sewer improvements, the wastewater treatment plant tertiary facility, various ADA, traffic signal, bicycle, sidewalk, and pavement rehabilitation projects. Staff has reviewed the proposed CIP projects against the general plan and has determined that the projects are consistent with and do not conflict with the general plan maps, policies, or texts. I would also note that the budget figures shown in the draft CIP are still being finalized and may change prior to City Council consideration as part of the fiscal year 26-27 budget. The budget adoption process is currently scheduled for June 8th. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the annual review of the 5-year capital improvement program, make a finding that the proposed projects are consistent with the City of Ceres 2035 general plan, and recommend approval of the CIP to the City Council. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you or the public may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beltran. I'll go ahead and open it up to the commissioners. Any questions for Mr. Beltran before I take it out to the public? Okay, go ahead and open it up to the public. Anyone that would like to speak on this public hearing item? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment period for this item. Bring it back to the commission. Mr. Beltran, I just have a question. I know last year when we approved this item, I recommended for Lions Park to be added. Can you confirm if that was? I didn't see it in the report, but
So it was added beyond the 5-year point, and I did notice that that was not in here this year, but I will make sure that it gets added before it goes for final adoption.
okay, thank you, sir. With that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve item number 4.
Go ahead and second.
Okay, got a first and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Goebel,
Aye.
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chairperson Condit.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with 1 absent.
Okay, gonna move on to item 5.
So this evening, we have the 6th cycle housing element implementation. It is a study session, and we have Leah, with our consultant, will take this from here.
Thank you, Chair Leah Simvalakis. Tonight, we are going over the 6th cycle housing element implementation programs and policies that we are lucky enough to be able to implement using the REAP 2.0 grant. Next slide. So just a refresher for all of our new commissioners, on March 24th, 2025, the Ceres City Council adopted the 2023 through 2031 housing element. And on May 22nd, 2025, the California Department of Housing and Community Development issued our substantial compliance letter for that housing element year. So you'll notice that year, the housing cycle is 23 to 31, yet we didn't adopt until 25. So for some background, every 8 years, cities in California have to adopt a housing element. Your housing element is a chapter inside of your general plan. And these housing elements live in certain cycles depending on what cycle you're on with the state. City of Ceres is on the standard cycle, which is every 8 years. It is a huge undertaking, and HCD really cracked down in this last cycle. So many cities have yet to even adopt this cycle, even though we're clearly right in the middle of this cycle element. So to have an adopted housing element is honestly a very big kudos to the city. We were the 3rd city in San Estanislao County, only behind Modesto and Newman, to adopt the housing element. And right now, none of the other cities, I don't know, close enough? None of the other cities have yet at this point adopted their housing element. So, big shout out to all of those involved. Next slide. But that's not the hard part. We all thought was getting it passed, but now we have to implement. So there's a chapter in the housing element that talks about all of the programs that we promised to the state that we were going to implement, which would help further fair housing policies and affordable housing throughout our city. So now we have to get to work, and which seemed kind of like a daunting task until we received the REAP grant. Next slide. So luckily, the City of Ceres, there's I know we've talked about like REAP point 1, REAP point 2.5, REAP point 2. There's a bunch of grants that kind of are filtered through STANCOG, Stanislaus Council of Governments. And there was another round of funding, REAP 2.0, and it was allocated to various cities within our jurisdiction, all the cities that are part of the COG. And we were allocated $320,000. There were some caveats to the money, though. It had to be implemented for very specific purposes, specifically for integrating housing and climate goals, to accelerate infill housing development, reduce VMT or vehicle miles traveled, increase housing supply and affordability levels, affirmatively further fair housing, and facilitate the implementation of adopted regional and local plans to achieve these goals, namely your housing element. So February 9th, so we knew this funding was available. We wanted to try, since you're short-staffed in your community development department, we wanted to try to use these funds to implement our housing development. When this program was released, we had initially submitted to STANCOG a program that only implemented our housing element goals. So at one point, we had a scope of work that we have 44 housing element programs to implement by 2031. And we were going to accomplish 33 of the 44, but we had a lot of back and forth with HCD, and they felt that we weren't accomplishing enough of the REAP 2.0 goals. So by the time we kind of negotiated the projects that HCD felt qualified, we were already in February. So on February 9th, the City Council authorized the city manager to enter into an MOU to get that $320,000 from the COG for this REAP grant. And then the stipulation was you have to use all of your funds by December 31st, 2026. So you think, great, how hard is it to use those funds? Some of these programs take time to implement. Some of these programs, you don't just, you need a consultant to work on them. They need to have a public workshop. We need to go to planning commission. We need to go to city council. So you think you have, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months to do something, but that's not a lot of time. So we had to be very strategic about the programs that we could implement in this short period of time. Next slide. Sorry. Julian. There you go. So we knew we had to be strategic about how we went about this. So we chose to hire EMC Planning Group. EMC Planning Group was the consultant that helped us pass our housing element. So why not use the consultant who's intimately familiar with our housing element? They know the programs that they helped get HCD to agree to give us our certified element. So we contracted with EMC again, using those REAP funds to help us then implement our programs. So we are now working with Kylie Pope and Asia King. Kylie presented the housing element. I think just Chair Condit was there, but Kylie was our program manager for implementing the housing element, and Asia is a new team member, but they have worked diligently to really get us through the programs that were in your staff report. I believe it's 14 programs that they are going to help us get through of the 44 that we need to by 2031. Next slide. So you'll see a list of programs, and it's kind of going to be a long slog through our slideshow here, but I want to talk about each program because the purpose is to help you understand why we're doing these specific programs, why I don't want to call them low-hanging fruit, but they were programs that we could easily make the change in this time frame before the end of the year to accomplish. So we have 14 programs, all that involve small tweaks to our zoning ordinance, and there's one policy document that we need to adopt. But all of these programs, in theory, help further affordable housing by either making it easier for developers to develop, make it more cost efficient for developers to develop, with the idea that if it's cheaper and easier, people will come to our city, build the housing that the community needs. So this is just a quick rundown, and then we'll go through each program. And what I forgot to put a slide, I do want to direct your attention to the website at some point. One of our programs talked about putting up resources for fair housing. So our IT department has created a really nice fair housing resources page on the website. It's on the same site that the housing element is on, but it lists a ton of housing resources in the city of Ceres and the Stanislaus County. And that was kind of part of one of the policies, so we can kind of check one off. But we have this nice website, so if you ever get a chance to peruse it, it's important. And it is a resource for the community. So if anybody asks you, you can direct them to this website. Everything's been updated. All the phone numbers are current. So that is on there. And I'm sorry I didn't make a slide for that. But next slide. So program 1.3, and then I discussed with the chair, we're going to kind of go through all the programs. If you have a burning question, feel free to raise your hand. If chair, I don't know if you want, it's not really a public hearing per se, but if you want to have the public ask their questions at the end, I'll kind of roll through everything. Okay. So program 1.3, smaller minimum lot sizes. So you'll notice that we are recommending or going to recommend that we reduce the single family dwelling lot size to 5,000 square feet in the R2 district. Currently, we're at 6,200 square feet and for regular lots and 7,500 square feet for corner lots. A lot of builders are looking for 3,500 to 5,000 square foot lots. They can get more yield for the property, which encourages them to then come build. So Ceres has some, I don't want to call them antiquated lot sizes, but lot sizes that are not consistent with current builders market. So the first goal would be the first program 1.3 to reduce these lot sizes so that we can entice builders to come and they get more bang for their buck essentially once they purchase a piece of property. More lots means more housing for the community. More housing for the community means inherently more affordability of those units. Next slide. So this program is amend the ADU, our current ordinance. So Ceres is progressive in that we do have an adopted ADU ordinance, but we have also expanded this program to say that at least 10% of all new single-family homes in West Landing will be required to build an ADU. A lot of home builders have the option to build a new home with like that in-law unit in the front or even in the back, and we have decided to make it a code requirement that all of the new housing in West Landing includes an ADU, and then we also are going to update our current ADU ordinance to reflect current state standards. It's a little outdated, so we're just making sure it aligns with state law. And again, ADUs, JADUs, they're all a way to build affordable units on properties. They can be rentals for either family members or outside individuals, just increasing the housing supply in the city, which in turn make everything more affordable. Next slide. So this is a huge push by HCD is to make sure that all of our zoning, not just HCD, it's an adopted Senate Bill 2, we will continue to allow traditional supportive housing as a residential use, subject to only those requirements in other dwelling units in the same type of zone. There is some stigma with traditionally there's some stigma with traditional and permanent supportive housing. Our goal is to just make it allowed. That doesn't mean we're going to be building it. Someone has to come to us to ask to build that type of unit, but we do need to make it easier to help our unhoused population transition to housing and gets the services that they need so they can re-enter into society. And that is part of furthering fair housing, which is a big tenet of our housing element. Next slide. So we, again, another very progressive thing for Ceres. You already have a chapter designated to state density bonus law. We just need to update it. State density bonus law, we added it in 2020. There have been changes since 2020. So basically we are just going to ensure that it is in line with state law. State law ultimately controls anyway. It's just nice to have an ordinance, have our ordinance read the same as state law. So there's no confusion that when a developer comes, if they want to add additional affordable units to a site, they can then avail themselves of state density and they can ask for some concessions from development laws that may make building a project difficult. For example, balconies are they're an expensive part of a multifamily project. Sometimes a developer will come in and say, hey, if I can alleviate the need to build a balcony, I can get more units. And then in the end, more units for your community. So it's really important to have an updated state density bonus chapter so that complying with state law. Next slide. Streamlining the permit processing procedures. We are going to update our code to clarify the required permit types that are needed for multifamily residential uses and then the decision-making authority. We're also going to develop an easy-to-read handout that clearly illustrates the process for developers to follow. Everybody thinks the city process is scary and difficult. We want to make it as clear and concise as possible to really encourage those multifamily housing developers to come to Ceres, build the much needed multifamily housing. And the best way to do that is to have a really clear code. These developers know where to look. They look in the code. If they can't find it, it makes them nervous. Or what is this going to be a really hard city to work in? Maybe we don't want to build here. If we have really clear rules, a couple of cheat sheets for them, it just encourages them to come to the city and build the housing that we need. Next slide. So this is a long slide, and we're going to do a bunch of little changes to certain sections of the code that just make housing development easier in the city. I don't want to go through all of them because there's like 3 slides, but quickly we'll just pick a couple. We're going to up our density requirements, meaning like in R3, 7 dwelling units per acre is not that high, but that's an increase from what we have today. So we're going through all of our zoning designations to make sure that you need to have an increase in the minimum units you're getting from that site. In order to get that increase, you have to do certain things like maybe reduce parking in the higher density zoning districts, which I know makes people nervous, but we can't keep planning for cars. We have to plan for people. So if we reduce the parking requirements, builders can build more units. If they can build more units, then they can reach these minimum density requirements. Next slide, Julian. Again, just continuing with some of these changes, we're increasing our FAR, our floor area ratio. Again, we're reducing some of the parking standards. We are increasing the height limit in some of the zones. Just again, the whole goal of all of this is to make it easier to build housing in series. And I think there's one more slide of just the small changes that we're making. Yeah. Some of our, like removing the on-site improvement requirement for a wall or vegetative barrier for multifamily projects. Walls are really expensive. CMU walls per square foot can be a prohibitive cost. And then somebody is, okay, well, I'm not going to build this project. We're adding some definitions. We're adding mobile and manufactured housing in all zones, meaning you can plot, you have to have the appropriate foundation, of course, but we're amending sometimes when people think mobile home, you think like a thing you pull behind a truck. We're talking about actual homes that meet state standards of a mobile home, which you would think, oh, isn't that already allowed? Not necessarily. So if you would rather put a mobile home in your backyard and call it an ADU rather than build one, we're just trying to make it easier to get housing on the ground. And these are all based around state mandated requirements. Next slide. Another change of zoning, another change. We can go to the next slide. So this one, again, is based in SB 35 and SB 330, preparing a checklist and procedures. Again, just making it very clear to the development community that we are adhering to state law and we have a checklist for appropriate, we have to have objective standards for design. The City of Ceres doesn't have any design standards, but as a planning commission, you see a lot of buildings come before you. By not having clear objective design standards, we're technically running afoul of these 2 state legislations. So by having this list, having clear defined standards, it makes it easy for a multifamily housing developer to know what the expectation is. They can plan their pro formas, they can plan their funding, and they can get an approval and get the units on the ground. Slide. So when I first came to Ceres, I was shocked to find we don't have really clear findings that you guys make as the Planning Commission for approval. And that was something that jumped out at HCD as well. Like, you need to know, what do I need to do as a developer to show you, the commission, that my project is compatible with your city? So things like, is it compatible with the general plan? You guys review that, but it's not actually written in the code. Is this use compatible with the zoning district? You guys review that, but it's not written in the code. These are just standards that we've kind of used, but it should be very clear. So we're going to have adopted standards. Is the project, doesn't create conflicts with vehicular, bicycle, or pedestrian transportation? Does the site layout work for the site? Is this a viable site for this project? You guys all make those findings when you review a project, but we've kind of have you do it on the fly. Now you'll be able to look at the findings, understand, an outside developer will be able to look at the findings, what are you looking for, and they can plan their project accordingly, and they can get that unit through quicker. Next slide. Replacement unit policy. This is going to be a new section of the code. It's already state law, but we don't have it. But basically, we're saying that when you tear down a unit to build another unit, you have to be able to replace as many units as you've taken. So let's say there was one parcel that had 5 units and you're going to tear it down and build something else. You have to replace all 5 units. So if you were thinking, oh, I'm going to build a 5-unit project, but you took units down, you actually build your 5-unit project plus the units you demolished. So you're really building an 8-unit, or if you had a site, 3 units exist, you want to tear it down, build 5, you have to build 8. You can't just, you have to build and replace. So we're adding that to our code. Next slide. And this is one that I know causes people some consternation because we don't want people parking outside of the site. But again, we can't keep planning for cars. We have to plan for people. So we've reduced the parking requirements of multifamily to essentially, parking is expensive to build and it also cuts down on your unit yield. So by reducing it, you're able to get more units and get more people housed. That change is coming. Next slide. Low barrier navigations. This is again state law. We just don't have it in our code, so we need to add it. So we will amend the zoning ordinance to include a definition for what a low barrier navigation center is and develop by right procedures for processing low barrier navigation centers, meaning by right would be, this is a use that doesn't have to come to the Planning Commission for a CUP. A lot of low navigation centers typically require a CUP. We don't require anything. So now we're just making it a by right use so that members of our community who need certain help to, become housed and have the services that they need, these navigation centers can do that. That doesn't mean you're building any, that we are building any, but should the county come and want to build a navigation center, which is typically who builds them, or it's much easier to do so. Slide. Employee housing, we are amending the zoning code to allow employee housing for 6 or fewer persons in a single family use, which you might think like, how can that not happen already? But a lot of times single family homes have a certain definition for family and you have to be related and how many non-related people can live together, which obviously people rent out rooms that we don't know about, but this just makes it allowable and there are no questions. There's no definition of what constitutes a family and who can live in a single family house without it being considered a boarding house, which sometimes are restricted. So this just ensures like, a group of teachers that are coming to serve our kids can live affordably in the city and it can be okay by per code. Next slide. Now this is a policy that we're working with in conjunction with Michael. But basically, we are developing a policy that the council will adopt that says that they will give priority to new affordable housing projects to connect to city, water and sewer. You have to have an affordable housing project, right, to avail themselves of this. But should one come in and if there's some random shortage, we're basically agreeing to say that affordable housing projects, they're not just affordable market rate, but they have to be affordable, deed restricted, affordable housing units would take priority for if sewer and water were limited, they would get priority hookups. Next slide. And then we already have this section in the code, reasonable accommodations, but to eliminate subjectivity and when our review for reasonable accommodations, we'll amend the municipal code to make clearer findings. It's reasonable accommodations would be, I need to waive this specific zoning ordinance requirement because of XYZ. If I can't, sometimes we don't allow parking in the front yard, but if you're handicapped and and you live in an area that, doesn't have any street parking, maybe we allow a parking spot in your front yard. That would be like a reasonable accommodations. We don't have really clear findings as to how to grant that. So now we will, and then reasonable accommodations is linked to fair housing. Part of the, we want to have accessible housing for all members of our community. This is just a way to achieve that. Next slide. So tonight I did a quick overview and the reason we did this is because we will come before you in June with the actual red line code updates. So I went through that, the one slide that had like 3 parts. You'll be able to see, in chapter 18 on, this area, it used to say this and now it says this. So this was just to kind of give you a broad overview, tell you why we're doing it, why we have to do it. But then at the June 15th Planning Commission meeting, you'll be able to see the code sections that are changed and how they're changed. Our consultant is preparing that now. I've seen one draft of the red lines, but we want to get you a final red line draft that'll be attached as an exhibit. And then you would make your recommendation about those red lines, and then it does go to city council because it's an ordinance. You're changing the code, and when you change an ordinance, you have to, city council is the ultimate reviewing authority on that. And then I did want to talk briefly, I have one more slide about program 2. So I indicated in the beginning, we really went back and forth with HDD. We were trying to get way more programs through, but they felt we needed other programs that met the REAP 2.0 goals. So we came up with a second project, which we will discuss at a later date, but I just wanted to give you a quick purview. It's going to be an update to the series Downtown Specific Plan and updates to chapters 1, 3, 5, and 10. This Downtown Specific Plan doesn't have any of the concessions or links to affordable housing and infill sites that our current housing element has. So we told HCD we want to integrate our specific plan, Downtown Specific Plan, with all of our new housing element programs that we're updating so that we don't want to have conflicting documents. We can't say in one hand we're doing all of this, we're in our downtown where we really want to see a lot of housing. We know the H train is going to come. I know it's paused, but at some point we'll have the H train. The downtown is where we really want to see housing, so we want to make sure our housing element aligns with the specific plan. So that'll be program 2. Did I do one more slide? No. That's the last slide. Anyway, that'll come before you in October. I guess that was the last slide. I'm sorry. So it'll come before you in October. We'll do another workshop, run through the changes. In November, it'll come as an actual project to the Planning Commission, and then that will go to City Council in December. And hopefully we will have met our goal of spending all of the $320,000 by December 31st. So that is the overview. It's meant to be a workshop, so feel free to ask your questions. And then I'm here for answers.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it. Any commissioners have any questions for staff? I guess I'll start. Leah, so the $320,000 that we received from StanCog, this is the only source that we're spending that on? Is this the consultant to develop this entire plan? Is that correct?
Correct.
And there will be no money left over?
There will be no money left over.
Okay. Okay. My biggest, so to the bullet points of these, of the codes, I know I'd have to be specific to which ones, but do those come from state law? Is that why we're changing them, or are some of them just the consultant's purview of changing those?
So to get your housing element passed, HCD basically scrutinized every element of what would prevent housing being constructed in your city. And most of these are drawn from common complaints. Like we can't, get enough units when you require 2 parking spaces per unit. That's just a general consensus in the development community. Some of these we have very low density requirements, minimum density. You can't get more units on a site unless you up that minimum density. So these programs were basically crafted with, I don't want to say, but pressure, basically like you must make these. So to say it was the consultant's idea, I would say they were more HCD's idea, but there are deficiencies in our code that are not aligned with, practices of producing housing.
Okay. My biggest concerns were relating to 1.3, the lot sizes for single family homes, and also the 2.6 with parking. So we're proposing dropping the requirement, I believe it was from a minimum of 6,200 square foot to 5,000 square foot. And then parking, right now it's 1.5, is that correct?
For multifamilies, but
Multifamily.
single family will still require a 2-car garage. We're not changing
Okay.
that. So lots are getting smaller. We still are allowing acquiring. We're not changing the provision for it.
Okay.
So
Can you explain what role we have? Can we make recommendations to these bullet points? Is that what we're doing tonight, or what do we save that for when this comes back in June?
So we can take the input now and I can talk to the consultant. I need to go back, if this is what we promised, they've already, you guys, by recommending the housing element, forgive me, I believe, I don't know, Commissioner, if you were on the
Last year, yeah.
last year when we adopted the housing
Yes.
element. So those programs that specifically say some of these, we've already adopted them by approving the housing element. If there are some changes and if there's still wiggle room, we can make those changes. But if it's specifically stated in the program, we basically promised HCD, we're doing these things and we're doing them by the end of this housing cycle. So I can look at the lot sizes and parking, and then as long as it's not, if it doesn't specifically say 5,000 square feet, we don't have to do it.
Okay.
If we specifically said we're doing that, I would have to go back.
And this gets approved by the city council after we approve it. So there is a full process. So, okay. Those are my thoughts. Go ahead and open it up to the public. Any members of the public that would like to ask any questions on this item?
Dave Pratis series. I'm still looking for that half car. But I had to look up what that low barrier centers was. Anyway, where are you looking at building these?
So this housing element has a site inventory list. So we identify sites already and they're all eligible for low density, medium, and high. Those would be an ideal site because we've identified them as available today for housing. So so those sites would be, if I was a developer of a navigation center, I would come to the city and say, do you have a site inventory? I would say, I do. It's adopted in my housing element. And we'd flip to that page and we would look at it. And if it met their needs, acreage wise, I mean, that's where they would go.
Yeah, we got two big areas that they keep pushing back 2 years at a time that they don't want to build while Houston's is continuing expanding there. And it looks like before, if those properties even get started, it looks like maybe some of this will maybe build. I don't know where you're planning on putting these places for the homeless and temporary housing. Maybe they can use those lots out there. If they're not going to build houses, maybe we can start moving the homeless out on them.
Yeah,
It's going to be interesting. I'm still looking for the half car, and it don't work because you can just drive down Whitmore, the duplexes down there. There's no such thing as a 2-car family anymore. And that's it. And so it's to me, it's a waste of time. Business, when you got several business and you put a half car in there, one business takes up places that takes up room for the others, and then they got to find all kinds of parking out in the street and block and residentials and everything else. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is, yeah, we'll see. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to commissioners.
I just have a quick question about ADUs. That doesn't increase any parking requirement.
No, the state does not. If you are within, if you meet the parameters of state law, you don't necessarily have to park the ADU. If you're within a half mile of a transit stop, you can use the driveway as a parking spot. So that's already in state law, and whether our code says it or not, we have to allow it. So you don't have to specifically have a parking spot for your ADU.
Thank you.
I have another question too on the density building. Has there been any surveys or anything on what people want as far as buying a home? Do
I
they
don't-
want these type of houses, or are these houses going to be built and just become a bunch of rentals?
So I am consulting for you. So I work for a private engineering firm, and I can tell you that builders don't build unless they know they're going to sell homes, and that they need to hit a certain lot size. And if they weren't selling them, they wouldn't keep trying to, hit that lot size. So they kind of have it dialed in. We're not in the business of building homes, and I do think, to Mr. Pratt's point, we don't do the building. So it's a bone of contention, I feel like, with the state. We can put all these policies down, but we, the city, we don't build the units. The private market builds the units. They tell us what they need, and I do know that the majority of builders these days are looking for 35 to 5,000 square foot lots. People don't want yards. They want park space. So, we have a park requirement, and sometimes they want to go down to a one-car garage. I don't know any city that's allowed that yet, but we all know nobody parks in their garage. It's just outside storage, but people, they're building homes and they're selling them in Modesto, and those builders have very small lots and small, big houses on teeny lots, and they're selling. So I have to just say yes. I don't do the market analysis, but I'm going to go with yes, that's what people want because that's what they're building, and then they're selling them.
And another thing I have is I've seen a lot of these zero lot line neighborhoods, and in about 2 years they go to hell. They look really bad. They're not kept up. You've got cars parked everywhere. Grass, front stairs. So
I agree. I guess the goal would be, and I don't know if you're asking a question, but the goal would be to force people to give up their cars. But the Central Valley is not caught up on transportation. So what is it going to take? The state has all these rules that we have to follow, but then they don't provide mass transit to the valley, which then allows people to get rid of their cars. So it's this cycle of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. You reduce parking, and it's never a half a car. It's about the overall requirement. If you have one unit and you're required half a spot, you obviously have to provide one parking because you don't round down, you always round up. You have 5 units and everybody's required a half a spot. 2.5 spots means 3. You never round down to 2. So then that 5-unit complex will then have 3 parking spots for the 5 units. And then who's going to live in there? Maybe 2 people with 2 cars. But we're not solving that problem. And the state has said, I don't care about that problem. You have to just make more units because we need affordable units in the state of California. And if we force these habits, hopefully, like the ACE train should have been here how many years ago? We should be able to get the citizens of Ceres to over the hill on a train, but it's not here. You have to go to Lathrop to catch the ACE train so where's the state on that? I don't know. But they are telling me that I have to not park cars and make room for more units. And so it's unfortunate, we're in the valley where there's a lot of things that are not caught up to bigger cities, and many of these laws are geared toward bigger cities. It makes living in a bigger city easier, and it's not tailored to the valley, but we still have to comply. So we're trying. Not that you asked the question, but I just trying to help make sense of it all. And believe me, we all are confused by it too. It was a lot of fighting with them because I can put whatever you want on paper. That doesn't mean I can get the developer here and put a unit on the ground, but I'll put it on paper and hope for the best. It's essentially what we have to do in order to be in compliance. And at some point you're saying, well, what happens? If you don't have a certified housing element, then we may not be eligible for STANCOG funds that Michael receives to do roads and other things. We might not be eligible for REAP grants to do then these other things. So I don't think the attorney's on, but is the attorney on? So I don't know if they want to talk about, have there been penalties? I don't know enough about that, but essentially that's, if we don't comply, there could be ramifications. So we have to comply.
I can, thanks, Leah. I can actually provide a little bit more context on that too. You're absolutely right. The state has been taking a stepped up approach in enforcement against cities who they believe are not moving their housing element approvals fast enough or implementation of the policies quickly enough. To that point, I think Leah's 100% right. The Ceres is very fortunate to have to be on the list of cities who are in compliance at this point. And I think that staff's push at this point to keep the ball rolling with implementation of these policy changes in order to stay consistent and in line with HCD's expectations of implementation for full approval.
Thanks for that, Nubia. Francisco, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question in regards to the parking. How does that parking look for this for the high density? Is it primarily street parking, or is there going to be a designated area for residents that have more than one vehicle?
It'll be whatever we land on, and so however many, if it's a 2-bedroom apartment, if we want to go back to that slide. Which number? I know, sorry, Stephanie. There's the one program that specifically calls out the number. So whatever they build I know they're based on bedrooms, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. It's program 2.6. So half a parking spot if it's an affordable unit, but then multifamily generally R3, R4, R5 parking will reduce to 1.5 parking spaces regardless of number of bedrooms. So you could have a 1, 2, or 3 a studio, 1, 2, or 3, no matter what, it's a 1.5 parking space requirement. And so if you have a 2-bedroom, I guess you could assume there's 2 people, and then those 2 people may have a car. At 1.5, that unit does have 2, but at some point, that 0.5 doesn't make it a 1-to-1 ratio, right? And you will have more bedrooms than you have parking spots, and those cars will probably park on the street. You know, it's kind of like water, right? Water finds a way. People find a way. They park wherever there's a spot. They will likely be on public street.
And on this specific item, this isn't a state recommendation or law, correct?
It is not. It is what we agreed to by passing program.
Yeah. Any other questions from commissioners? Does this need a motion of approval, or is this just the first public hearing?
Just get your questions asked, take notes. If anybody else has a comment, just consultant. We can tweak. It can't.
Okay. Yeah, again, that would be my recommendation on 1.3 and 2.6. I know this was approved last year. This is a working process. However, priorities can change, I believe. And again, if that could just be brought back as an option. And also, this is something the city council will have to dictate as well. So, but I appreciate staff's work in making sure we're compliant and leading the way throughout the county in this. So I appreciate it. Anything else from commissioners? No? Okay. We good, Leah? Okay, all right. Go ahead and move on to the next public hearing on item 6.
Good evening, Commissioner. This evening, I have our consultant with Govea. She will be presenting the Rebel HQ Martial Arts Training Facility.
Good Monday evening, Chair Condit and Commissioners. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. So this evening for your consideration is a request for a conditional use permit for the operation of the Grapple HQ Martial Arts Training Facility located within an existing industrial tenant space at 1200 Montclair Drive, specifically Suite 7. Next slide, Julian. And just heads up, the slideshow is not changing on my end.
You said it's
So if
not,
we're looking at the, sorry, what was that?
did you say that is the slideshow advancing on your end?
No, it's not. But I'll keep moving forward if you guys are on proposed project. Oh, something's happening on my end now. So the applicant is requesting approval to establish an indoor martial arts training facility known as the Grapple HQ within an existing tenant suite in a multi-tenant industrial building. Perfect, thank you. The tenant space is approximately 1,626 square feet and would provide scheduled martial arts instruction for both children and adults. No exterior modifications, additions, or site work are proposed as part of this request. Next slide. The project site or subject property is located within an existing industrial development on approximately 1.11 acres. So the development itself is relatively new and was approved in the last couple of years, which is why it's not showing on the Google aerial view. But if you drive out there, the building is constructed and there. The surrounding area is developed with industrial uses in all four directions. The site already contains shared parking, drive aisles, landscaping, circulation improvements designed to serve multiple industrial tenants. Next slide. So as a refresher for any of you who may have been on the dais when this originally was approved, here is the site plan for the overall site that was approved. So the use permit would encompass Suite 7 of this building only. So we're only talking about the singular tenant space when we're talking about uses for this building. Next slide. So the site as a whole carries a general industrial land use designation. While the designation primarily supports industrial and employment generating uses, the general plan also allows complementary and conditionally permitted uses that support employment areas and provide services within industrial districts. The proposed use occupies an existing developed tenant space and does not alter the overall industrial character of the area. Next slide. The site is located within the P350 Planned Community Zoning District. Under the approved PC framework, uses are evaluated pursuant to the M2 General Industrial Zoning Regulations. The Series Municipal Code specifically identifies industrial recreational facilities, including martial arts studios and similar indoor recreational uses, as conditionally permitted within the M2 zoning district, subject to an approved conditional use permit. Next slide. So on this slide, it shows the floor plan of the approved site plan. So outlined in red there is Suite 7, the tenant space in question this evening. The facility would primarily operate during evening hours, generally between 4:30 p.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. Classes would be constructed entirely indoors within the enclosed tenant space. The project utilizes existing shared parking and circulation improvements, and the applicant has indicated that classes will be scheduled to minimize overlap in parking demand or any conflicts with parking. Before we move on to the next slide, I do want to note that as a discretionary permit, the commission retains the right to either revise or revoke the use if any of the operational standards become an issue. Next slide. So pursuant to section 18.30.090 of the municipal code, the planning commission must make several findings in order to approve or even disapprove a conditional use permit. So Leo was talking about findings in the other sections of the municipal code, and miraculously, the conditional use permit section is not one of those sections. There are findings. Some of them are a little bit subjective, but they do exist. Staff believes that all of the findings that are currently in this section can be made. The site itself is adequate to accommodate the proposed use. The surrounding roadway network and parking areas are sufficient and the use will not adversely impact surrounding industrial properties. The proposed facility operates entirely indoors, and it is not anticipated to generate operational impacts such as truck traffic, noise, odors, or heavy industrial activity that has potential to conflict with surrounding tenants. Next slide, please. Staff has evaluated the project for consistency with the intent of the general plan and found that the proposal supports several goals and policies related to quality development and efficient use of existing infrastructure. The project activates an existing vacant tenant space while providing recreational and instructional opportunities within the community without requiring expansion of public infrastructure or other public services. Next slide. Environmental review for CEQA. So this project is exempt from further environmental review under section 15301, existing facilities. The proposal consists solely of occupancy and operation of an existing tenant space within an existing industrial building and does not involve expansion of the building footprint or any additional physical development. So this evening, we're really only looking at the use occupying the space. There is no physical development proposed with this project. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt under CEQA and adopt a resolution approving conditional use permit 2619 for the operation of the Grapple HQ Martial Arts Training Facility. Both myself and the project applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. George. The public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak at all? Yep, come on up.
Hold on 1 second. Let me start the timer.
Just 5 minutes, not 10?
That's 10, yeah. You got as much time as you want. Go for it.
Go ahead.
All right. Excuse me. Pleasure to be here. I hope everybody heard the PowerPoint. I kind of had a hard time hearing myself. So with that said, I'm just going to go straight into my speech here. Am I speaking too close to it?
No, you're good, man.
Okay. All right. Good evening, council members. My name is Cameron Gilliam, and I am the owner of the Grapple HQ. I'm a father, a husband, Turlock resident, Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and a military veteran of 16 years. I'm here today because I believe that Jiu-Jitsu can have a meaningful and lasting impact on the city of Ceres. Ceres is a city built on hardworking families, strong values, and community. With a population of nearly 50,000 residents and a large percentage of young families and youth, this city continues to grow and evolve. Can I just do without the microphone? Okay. I apologize.
Yeah.
Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just easier for me. Okay. The growth creates an opportunity to invest in programs that strengthen not only physical health, but also character, connection, and public safety. We understand the importance of operating responsibly within the community and being a respectful neighbor to the surrounding businesses and residents. So in other words, I understand that parking issue can be a problem in the city of Ceres. But the Grapple HQ hours will be from 4:30 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. This is partly why I strongly believe parking will not be an issue, along with a lot of off-street parking. Moving on, Jiu-Jitsu is more than self-defense or a sport. It creates a very unique community. For instance, I'm a Minnesota native, and without Jiu-Jitsu, I would not be here in front of you today. My original coaches, they came from Brazil, leading to my point. Without them, none of this would ever have became my reality. I originally came to the Central Valley temporarily to teach Jiu-Jitsu for my coach's friend that had some visa issues back in 2019. Shortly after that, COVID hit. When I officially moved back here in 2022, I struggled to make friends. Meeting people at Jiu-Jitsu was one of my only outlets, which I am incredibly thankful for. Now today I am married to a Turlock native, and we have we have a beautiful 6-month-old baby named Charlotte. When you walk into a jujitsu academy, you will see all walks of life: doctors, truckers, preachers, nurses, cops, veterans, firefighters, or even tattoo artists. A massive melting pot of people from people all coming together to learn a martial art. Law enforcement officers significantly need jujitsu training more than anyone, and for some reason, it does not seem to be pushed enough. As a veteran, this is partly why I plan to give a large discount to any veteran or first responder at the Grapple HQ. Training jujitsu can save a cop's life or save them from needing to pull the trigger. There are not many hobbies out there like this. Unlike many activities, jujitsu is lifelong. A child can begin training young and continue benefiting from it for decades. So many people train and even compete in jiu-jitsu well into their 30s, 50s, or even their 60s. One of my good friends still competes. He's 53. So the jiu-jitsu community is extraordinary, and I honestly love it, and I'm sure you would too, given the chance to try it. Having started my jiu-jitsu business in Patterson and leaving roughly just after 1 year really hurt telling the parents I was moving to Ceres. Their reaction is a direct correlation of how impactful jiu-jitsu can be for these kids. Personally, Patterson was too far from my house in Turlock, and I found a much better opportunity here in Ceres, so I had to do what was best for me and my family. When parents enroll their kids into jiu-jitsu, it becomes more than just keeping them busy. Whether it's something as simple as tying their belt properly, lining up with their toes on the line, or bowing on and off the mat, they are building many lifelong traits such as discipline, confidence, responsibility, courage, accountability, respect, you name it. Even though I am not open yet, I still get parents calling me and telling me they want to put their kids in jiu-jitsu because their child's getting bullied at school. Many kids struggle with bullying, anxiety, and confidence issues, find a sense of belonging and purpose through jiu-jitsu training. Jiu-jitsu also creates something incredibly valuable: resilience. Kids learn that failure is part of growth. There's also plenty of opportunities for kids to compete in jiu-jitsu if they so choose to. They learn to stay calm under pressure, solve problems, and keep showing up even when things are difficult. Those lessons carry into school, relationships, eventually childhood. Lastly, let's also not forget that we're getting these kids off of phones and TV screens. Now, before I end this speech and open the floor for any questions, I just have one more thing. Jiu-jitsu has changed my life for the better. And if I can help change lives for the better through jiu-jitsu, something that I love, I will choose that over any career. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I'd have a couple if I could. Will you be having any instructions during the weekends at all? Or is that a possibility?
Not usually. On Saturdays, usually most jiu-jitsu academies just have like an open mat. Usually, typically, most gyms, it's like 11 a.m. to 12:30 or something like that. But I don't plan to as of yet.
Okay. And also, are you planning on doing any tournaments at all?
Yes. For the kids and for myself and whoever decides to sign up at the gym itself.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how many students do you think you'll have?
Per class, anywhere like no more than 10. So I mean, if that's 3 classes a day, it's not that many people really.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Do you have a timeline for starting? I mean, of course, development has to happen, but just curious about your opening.
Well, the sooner the better, because I signed a lease in January, so I've just kind of been losing money. So immediately would be cool.
All right. We're going to go ahead and open it up to the public. If any other members of the public would like to speak on this item. Good. Anybody on Zoom? No? Yes, sir. Come on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Howard. I'm actually a resident of Turlock, California, but I wanted to speak on behalf of CAM and the importance of jujitsu.
Sir,
One of the things.
hold on 1 second. Let me restart the timer. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Howard. I'm a resident of Turlock, and I wanted to come and speak on behalf of CAM because we know each other through jujitsu. One of the important things that he mentioned, and one of the things I think that people fail to realize, is when they hear jujitsu or they hear grappling, the first thing you think of is MMA. The first thing you think of is kids in a room, adults in a room, fighting, punching each other. But what you don't see is the importance of how it helps benefit them throughout the rest of their lives. The one thing that kids learn in jujitsu that you don't learn anywhere else and in any other sport is respect. You can go out on a basketball court, you can go out and play football, you can do all these things, but the one thing that you do not learn automatically is respect, because it's a sport where you have a physical contact and it ends after 10 or 15 seconds. When you're on the mats are the one thing that teaches you things that you only learn throughout life, which is how do you deal with struggling, how do you deal with adversity, and how do you deal with someone who's bigger than you, someone who's smaller than you, or how do you just deal with the emotions that come with someone pinning you down. And one of the things that I've learned from CAM throughout this time is it's not about how you deal with those situations physically, which most kids automatically do nowadays. They go to the physical part of it, but it's how do you deal with it mentally? How do you process that situation? How are you able to deal with it and understand how to use your words, think through problems, things that don't just stay on the mat, but they translate into everything else that you do every single day. And so for me, as I've talked to CAM and as I've gotten to know CAM, it is something that I think is important to bring to more kids and to more adults, because we often focus on the children, but we also don't realize that a lot of adults don't have a way to process some of these feelings that they have, or the ability to be on the mat and realizing that that ability to figure out how to get out of a position or how to get out of a struggle doesn't just stay on the mat. It also helps you in your day-to-day life and the stress and the things that you deal with. So as you go about making this decision, I really hope you think about the impact that it will have to kids, the impact that it will have to teenagers, to adults, but also to the community of Ceres. Because as Cam mentioned, you meet so many different people that you run into, that you walk by every single day, that you don't talk to. And a lot of those people have things that they can share with you and things that you can learn, whether you're an adult or whether you're a child, because the reality is we all used to be kids and we all had those adults that we ran into that helped us move along the way. And oftentimes kids don't have that now. And jiu-jitsu is a place that you can go and spend time with adults and not just learn jiu-jitsu, but also learn about life to be able to make those decisions as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right. Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised.
Okay, go ahead and bring it, close the public hearing, bring it back to commission. I'll go ahead and start. I just want to thank you, Cameron, for being here tonight. You did a great job. I am full support of this. I think anything we can give our youth to do, and also, just adults as well. Jiu-jitsu is a great thing, gets kids out there, and I have full confidence that you will make this successful. And I'm very glad we stole you from Patterson. I think it's going to be a great benefit to the city. So wish you all the best, and I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve and get them in business.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Yeah, we got a first and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Goebel,
Aye.
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chairperson Condit.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with 1 absent.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. George. All right, moving on to unfinished business. Update the Planning Commission on status of requested staff report for recommendation of removing Planning Commission stipends. I believe this is Nubia or Julian.
I will refer this to Nubia. This was a motion that was brought last meeting. So how do we move this forward?
So we brought it forward for discussion. Well, it was raised as a question to bring back to the Planning Commission for formalization. So if I'm not mistaken, what we got last time was consensus to bring it back for formal direction. What we can do is we will work with staff to have a staff report with reportable action to the Planning Commission at your next meeting. Because Julian, correct me if I'm wrong, we got a consensus to bring it back.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what we will have to do, and we can have it ready for the Planning Commission at your next meeting.
Okay, my understanding was we did have consensus last meeting to get it on the agenda, so my fear is now we're going to miss the budget because it's going to be approved on the 8th. So what happens then if we move this to June 15th and we make a decision then? What would be done as it relates to the budget?
I think that whatever action if the Planning Commission does move forward with a recommendation to a formal recommendation to the City Council, that could get wrapped up into the city's budget through, I mean, frankly, I don't know that it would have to make a formal adjustment to the budget, but if the council so wished to do so, it could be part of a budget amendment, maybe for a later time. And so we still have some time on the budget. I know we have a special budget workshop scheduled or looking to be scheduled in early June. So we just have to line up the timing on it. But again, the recommendation can come to the city council at any time, and the council could take action on that at any time.
Okay. All right. So we'll just wait for this to get on the agenda at a future meeting. Moving on to matters initiated by the Planning Commission staff. This is regarding Vice Chair's referral for on the car washes. Julian, do you have an update or direction on this, or Nubia?
No, if I remember correctly on this one, it's now for consensus from the Planning Commission on whether to move forward because it wasn't agendized as a proper item. So at this meeting, if it's the Planning Commission's request that staff look into this any further, then we'd need just some consensus. I don't need a vote, I just need a consensus.
And then so if we give you consensus, that would then come back on our agenda for
Right,
vote?
as a formal item. So the goal is that the Planning Commission's agenda item request would mirror the City Council's process, which typically is if there's a request to add it to future agenda for consensus, then we bring it back for direction on a consensus and then a formal action. And so that's what we would have to do for the next meeting. So we would need a consensus tonight for direction to move forward on that.
Okay. And then on this specific moratorium on the car washes, can we add to this recommendation for the agenda item?
I think you can, again, since the goal is we just need to know if the Planning Commission is interested in seeing this come before you in a more formal manner. Since it takes on its form through a moratorium, then there's specific language that we'd have to add. But yes, the Planning Commission can give staff some sense of what else you'd like to be included as part of that item.
Okay. With that, then I would like to see on our agenda a moratorium on car washes and gas stations with the addition of some sort of public outreach by the city to the members of our community, whether that's an online survey, a workshop, some sort of open door, communication avenue for folks to deliver their feelings on this issue. I did a little bit of research. Ceres has nearly 30 gas stations in our city. Our population is 49,000 people. We have roughly 9 car washes now. Manteca has 25 to 30 gas stations. Their population is double ours, roughly 96,000. And the city of Manteca is considering a moratorium on gas stations. So this is an issue I've spoke pretty heavily on. It would be my recommendation that we move forward with this and force the city council to vote on it. I think it makes sense, and we only have so much commercial land left in our city, and we need to be specific with the kind of commercial projects we're trying to entice in our city. And again, Nubia, correct me if I'm wrong, this can be changed. If it is adopted, it can be changed at any time by the city council.
If the moratorium is adopted?
Correct.
If a moratorium is adopted, typically you have, there are limitations on how long a moratorium can be in place, but the council could lift it if the council adopts a moratorium, it can then lift it earlier than the outer.
Okay.
timeframe, yes.
Julian, a quick question I did have, and if you don't have the answer, no worries. How many gas stations are in development that are not open?
I believe there's 4 in the pipeline right now.
So that will move our total of gas stations to nearly 35. So again, I'm going to support this. I hope we can get consensus to bring this back for an agenda item and make this recommendation to the city council. So kind of looking for direction from commissioners.
Can I ask clarification on the survey? Are you wanting the survey to happen prior to us bringing it back or after you?
No, that would be a part of for the city council. Correct. Yeah.
Would there be a budget for the survey? I'm just curious. Is that like, are we asking them to initiate something formally, or is this like a Google Forms?
I would be happy to do Google Forms at the expense of myself. It doesn't seem that difficult to outreach to the community. I think an issue like this we've seen over and over. The community has feelings about it. And again, it's difficult to get people at these sorts of meetings as we've seen. But we need to do some sort of measure, whether that's an online survey that our IT department, I'm sure, can assist with, or a separate workshop, some sort of public outreach effort. And again, that's just a part of my recommendation tonight that will be brought back on the agenda for us to further talk about.
The goal tonight is just to take the Planning Commission's temperature on seeing this as a formal item on your agenda for a future meeting. And I should note that at our last city council meeting, Councilmember Otero did request as a future city council discussion item is to evaluate the city's zoning code and any applicable documents such as like the general plan to look at some of these permitted uses and I think raised similar concerns to this.
Perfect. All right, so we're just looking for direction on this matter, which includes a moratorium on car washes and I'm adding gas stations.
So would that be like a motion to,
No motion, no motion. This is more of just taking
Say yes or no, correct, Nubia?
Right. No, it doesn't require a motion. I need to know that there's enough of you that are interested in seeing this formally on your agenda in the future.
Okay.
So basically maybe a yes or no from each of you will be good.
I would say yes.
Definitely yes.
yes.
Yes. Okay, we got our direction. Anything else, Nubia?
Not on that item. We got the direction
Okay,
we needed.
perfect.
Thank you, Chair.
Moving on to reports. Anybody got any reports? Seeing none, staff, we're good. All right, we're going to go ahead and
I did have something we want
yeah.
to announce. We are canceling June 1st Planning Commission meeting due to the conflict with the budget meeting with City Council.
Sounds good. Go ahead and adjourn to our next meeting on June 15th. Thank you.